This is Leigh from the Australian chapter. It's a very short chapter, just one name in it, but it's a start. Tonight, as you all know, I'd asked for some people to submit some photos to be assisted with, and 5 people have been, I'd like to say brave, but I hope won't be the case, enough to put some in. And I've asked 3 of our more experienced photographers to be mentors. I'd hope to have this a bit like America's Got Talent, but I couldn't find any buzzers or revolving chairs. So we're just going to go on. So first of all, we have Vince, Cruel But Fair Pellegrini, Larry, Ask Larry Stam, and Ivan, the Vaccinator Bub. The contributors are Debbie, I don't know surnames, so Debbie, Karen. Now, you've heard of people saying break a leg before a show. Well, Karen, unfortunately, has broken her arm in North Carolina, and she doesn't know whether she'll be able to watch this, but I'd ask the mentors to be kind to her, more kind than you're going to be to the others. Bill, Ginny, and Bob have also got photos. We're going to start with Vince, who's going to comment on 4 photos, then we'll go to Ivan, then we'll go to Larry, and keep going around till we all get sick of it or run out of photos. Before we start, I just want to put a plug in for the session on June the 6th. It's going to be another sort of sharing session. I've asked people, we're calling it a special interest night. I've asked people who have got special interests if they would mind sharing their special interest, and then other people who share that interest can then put their photos in and we'll have a bit of a chat about it. Vince is going to start off talking about composition. Ginny is going to show us what she can do with Photoshop, and Tom will talk about airplanes, particularly warbirds, if he's available. And I'd hope that somebody might jump in with some birds or landscape, something like that. And then others who have got that interest can join in. Okay, so over to you, Vince.
Yeah, and just a reminder to the rest of us, if you're not one of the speakers, please mute now.
Actually, I think we're going to leave it open mic.
Oh, are we?
Yeah. People can chime in. But just be careful about, television in the background, noisy neighbours, that sort of thing.
Yeah. All right. Never mind.
Okay.
So just an update, Lee. I'm going back to my topic of panoramas for that June 7th.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, that was my bad.
And I will be specifically talking about how to make your own brushes with images that you've taken. So you take a picture of a leaf, you can make a Photoshop brush out of that and then use it in your photos.
Thank you.
Nice. So thank you all for allowing us, the 3 of us and Lee, to get involved with your images. You need to be patient with us. I certainly have not done this in a group setting before. I have done it individually, and I am not an expert. I'm one that Lee volunteered me, I do know Lightroom and other programs pretty well, but I'm not the quote expert. What I'm doing tonight is offering you my opinion. It's not going to be the right opinion or the wrong opinion, but it's my opinion. And hopefully there'll be points that I bring up tonight that you can incorporate if you like them. The other majority of what I say, you can probably just discard and continue, but I hope I give you a few pointers. You're going to see how I think of an image and how I process steps. These are not yours, which makes it very difficult to assess an image, to edit and to process somebody else's image. I'm doing exactly that with Ginny's images. I'll show you mine, and she's going to show me how she did it. So I don't know what her final images were, how they turned out. When going through these, I have no idea what the maker's idea was as their vision for their image. So when I'm processing images, I'm going to end up processing with my vision and what maybe I thought the maker was thinking about. But keep in mind that it's my opinion only. It's just an opinion. And it's my thought about your image and your vision. Only you know what that vision is, and you know, are the only one who knows what you wanted your image to transfer to the viewer, and that's the hard part. I can tell you that my discussions tonight will be fairly technical, and there, as we learned at the last competition, we had an extremely skilled judge. And there were clearly two ways of looking at images. One way is the technical aspects of an image, and the other way is the creative component of that image. And our last judge really was pretty heavy into the creative aspects, possibly because he didn't know what the skill levels were. And I suspect if it was one of his Kutztown students, he would have been a little more stringent, technically speaking. And it's okay to wait toward the creative. But I think there's a lot to be said about having images that are technically good. And hopefully I'll show you some ways that I think might possibly help. If I was needing to choose between creativity and technical excellence, I would jump at creativity. That's what I think we all strive for. But it's pretty hard to have a really wow image that's not technically good. So that's kind of where I think more of my expertise is going to come in tonight. As we're going through this, there are a couple questions that I would suggest that you might be thinking about both tonight and when you're shooting, and later reviewing your own images. Is what were you looking for when you took that image? What was your vision? Why did you take it? Did you accomplish what you were setting out to do for the reason that you took that image? And also in processing, how could you improve it from what you had hoped to get? And what would you do differently the next time you're doing that same image, if you can go back out, or one similar to it? Asking yourself, what was your feeling, your vision? Why did you stop and take that image? So before I get started, can you tell me, are people used to using Lightroom? Are there people who don't use Lightroom at all? If you can raise your hand.
I use Capture One. I do not use Lightroom at all.
Okay.
Use
Photoshop.
Lightroom.
Okay.
And
We've got a
Photoshop.
couple who are novices to Lightroom, so we'll keep that in mind. What I'm going to ask is that you can keep your mics open, as Leigh said. Just watch the background noise and just speak up as I'm talking, and presumably with the other two guys. Criticize, comment, add things, etc. I'm going to be looking at the images on my Lightroom through my monitor. The monitor is calibrated. I use a Color Monkey to calibrate my images, my monitor. I recalibrate at least once a month. I do that whenever I'm going to do a large group of images, to make sure that the monitor isn't too bright and that the colors are okay and the room is okay when I'm doing it. So I'm looking at these images on a 27-inch Mac that's been calibrated. And you'll see that I first crop the images the way the first thing I do most of the time is to crop it. And the reason for that is when you crop an image and you get rid of bright areas, the histogram will change. So if you adjust everything first and then you crop, you may have to go back and redo a number of your steps. White balance is the next thing I typically will do, because when you change white balance, it also changes exposure, the tonality of the image. So that's typically the second thing I do. And I go through adjusting my white and black settings to help with my contrast control. then highlights and shadows. And when I've done that, I go back and recheck to make sure I've done my exposure correctly. Dehaze, clarity, texture, which are in Lightroom micro contrast controls, I do later and almost always locally instead of just globally where the entire image is affected. And you must go back and relook at your exposure after you've used those contrast changes, because the exposures will change, and you'll see that, I hope, when I'm demonstrating things. I very rarely, or not very, I rarely use Vibrance. Vibrance is a way to increase saturation. It restricts the pixels that are not very saturated, and the algorithm is such that it avoids saturating skin tones. I almost never use the actual saturation slider because it globally changes the saturation of every pixel on the screen. So that's something I don't usually use, and I don't usually use contrast because, again, that's a global instead of a local change. So with that as the background, sorry that was so long, but a couple points I really wanted to make. I'm going to share my screen. Again, this is interactive, and please interrupt me as you see fit. So are you seeing my screen now?
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay.
looks
So
like Reading.
we'll see how this goes. And if I can make it better as I'm doing it, let me know. So let me come to the beginning, bringing this image into my Lightroom catalog. If we look at that and then pop and look at the, that should be the final. Yeah, this is the image that was presented to me. And the people who presented, who sent in images, said that it's okay if we all use names tonight. So
You're zoomed in on that image, Vince.
Say again?
You're zoomed in at 100%. We're not
that's
seeing
why
the whole image.
Thank you very much. I don't know. There you go. That looks better.
Okay.
So this is how it was presented to me. And when I look at it, I like the image. I think it was a good capture, a good thought process. It has a good perspective, bringing me in this area and tunneling back to the window in the background. And I think the setup was good. The composition is good. I think there's a few issues with the lighting, exposure, and the image is not exactly squared. And I'll note over here, if you can see my cursor, the column here is jutting out, and over here it's the top is more narrow than the bottom. To me, the image is tilted vertically. So let's go to where I work the image and try to show some steps here. So I try to crop this image and make it square in Lightroom, and I could not. I brought the image into an outside program, Special Effects, their perspective control for DxO, part of the Nick collection. And with the Nick collection, and this is the only time I'm going outside of Lightroom, you can set what you want to be straight, and it corrects the image in all dimensions. You end up losing some image when it does that, but I wanted to show you what the crop lines were like that I could not accomplish in Lightroom using vertical tools, etc. So I now have the image appropriately cropped for me. I'm sorry, appropriately squared for me, and I cropped it as little as possible, and I'll show you that. I took out some of what I consider some dead space here. I really didn't want to lose this emblem that you'll see, but because of the need to square the image up, I did lose some of that. I did a temperature adjustment, and as I go through my history on the left side from bottom to top, we'll see changes happening on the right side. So I made the image, increased it, made it a little bit warmer by about 11 points. And I worked with with the highlights to try to cut down the high light coming out here. I thought it was a little blown out, so I decreased the highlights and then bumped the shadows up a little bit to get some definition here and in here. So these are global adjustments that will later be fine-tuned with more local adjustments. I adjusted the white balance for to increase the white balance on the right side here, to expand the histogram a little bit more toward the right side, to try to get a little extra contrast into the image. That's what the white and black balance do.
Oh, you not white balance. You're talking
I'm
about
sorry, white,
the whites.
the white. I'm sorry. Thank you,
You
Jim.
pulled the white clipping to the right. I was looking.
Yeah.
I thought you had already done the white balance. and
Yes,
you
I
did.
had done white balance. That was the plus 11. I've increased my white slider, my whites, to get a stretch in the white-black range of this image, which increases contrast. A little bit of dehaze. You have to be very careful with dehaze. It's a contrast control called, Lightroom considers it to be micro contrast control. And if you do too much dehaze, you can make the image begin to look grungy or HDR-ish, and you can get a lot of artifact. And generally speaking, a global dehaze, I don't go above 20 points with that. And the clarity is a little bit of sharpening. It's bringing a little bit of detail into the stonework. It's adding a little more contrast between light and dark areas through the stone. And then I start with my local. I'll see if I can show you this.
Hey, Vince,
Yes,
how did you square that again?
I did my squaring. I took it out of Lightroom into a program by DxO called Perspective Effects. But if I was going to stick with Lightroom, I would go down to the bottom here on the right side and utilize the vertical and horizontal changes, so we can tilt the image vertically, top to
Okay,
bottom, or horizontally, side to side. And usually Lightroom will take care of that, but I could, because of the camera was tilted up a little bit, it was squared, I think, to the floor, but it was tilted up, and Lightroom just was not able to fix it.
thank you.
And I shouldn't have done that, because I lost everything else I did in that image.
I'm so sorry.
No, no problem. I should have known, I should have realized when I did that.
I should have asked sooner.
So let's do it live. So,
That knocks all your history off?
yes,
Try-
because
try-
I
just
came down to the beginning.
Try just Control Z and see if it'll come back.
Oh, that'd be interesting. No,
So what you,
once you make a change, you lose the history above it. So I slid down on my history down to the bottom, to the vertical perspective, and then I lost what was above it. Yeah, that's too bad. So sorry, Bob. I'm not going to have what I had worked on, and I have no way of.
I have a functional question then on
Yeah.
that subject.
Um,
If you were going to try to do a different approach, can you just make another copy of the photo?
yeah, you do virtual.
Would that save the history? Would that virtual copy save that history?
No,
that you-
the virtual copy will be wherever you took it from. So now that's the virtual copy. Says on here, copy. And I would
Is there
have,
any way to duplicate this image and retain the history? Like if you would save it as a separate image,
yes, I could have.
would that retain the history?
Say we did this one that has all this history.
Mhm.
So I could go to the very top and now make a virtual copy of this. and then work on it further. So
So
I
you can see a different approach or use a different
yeah,
methods
so-
on it without losing your history of all the other
Well,
work you
that's my
did.
history. If I do virtual copy now, I'll get it with all this history. It'll copy exactly what this is. If I go down here, that's not normally what I would do. I would go to import, make a copy of this image, virtual copy, set it aside, and then quickly go back to where I was, because I'll erase everything above it if I've clicked to here.
If you make a virtual copy, can you go to a certain point in the history
Yes,
and import all those steps into the virtual copy?
yes, but they're not going to show, and they're not going to be changeable.
They won't show as steps. It'll be a copy as if you had exported it at that point.
Yes.
Or like if you make a layer in Photoshop where you copy all the stuff onto one layer and
Right.
Right. When I copy, when I
everything
make
down below it.
When I make
I
a
just-
virtual copy there, it will copy that image just as it is, but it will not show the history, and I cannot go back and change clarity.
Vince, going back to the one you were working on, did you try doing Control Z multiple times to back out of what you had done?
Ah, did that work?
Oh, wait, that brought me back to that image.
Keep going, keep doing Control Z. You should be able to Control Z multiple times and get back to where you were, I think. But now, I don't know, now that you went to another image, I don't know about that, but
Yeah. It's bringing me back to the next image, Jenny. I think it's gone.
oh, okay.
So I'll work on, I'll do just a little bit then, which was, this might be even better anyway. So local brush adjustments. I have this thing on the bottom left checked off to show you my adjustments, at least it should. Oh, we got to make some. Oh, that's cute.
So Vince, you might want to describe what you're doing.
Oh,
there.
I know what's happening. Yeah, yeah. I needed to make sure it was working first. So let me start over again. So I want to lighten this ceiling up. It's too dark. And I'm going to do that with a brush. It's basically dodging and burning, making light and dark. And this is on the right-hand side here, the brush for Lightroom. And it's now active, and I have a choice here of using brush A or B. They're just basically two different brushes you can have up at the same time. And this is the brush here. It has an inner circle, which is the active circle, and it has the outer circle, which is the feather or the taper. And the feather is the outer part of the ring, where you'll see that the effect is graduated. So I don't know why my mask is not overlaying.
It did briefly, Vince.
There, show mask overlay.
It's on low, it's on a low setting.
Yeah, no, it's actually turned off now.
I see pink.
Yeah, I know.
Mm.
But it's clicked to off. Can you look down here? And you'll see it says off. So I'm going to erase that and I'll start over one more time. So the brush is on. I want to lighten the ceiling. So I'm going to increase the exposure about a stop. And I'm going to, this is really,
And your flow's at 100%.
this is really strange. I don't understand this. It's affecting the image
Mm-hmm.
now.
Making things darker.
It's making them darker.
Is there a reverse? The
No,
auto mask is on.
let me come back to this image. I don't know what's going on with this image, and I'm hoping I don't have a Lightroom problem. So
That's good.
that was Bob's final. This was the original. This is Bob's final. But the problem is I'm trying to do my edit and I can't make it's not working. Okay, I'm going to, sorry about that, folks. Let me,
I'm sorry.
no, that wasn't your issue. It was my issue. Somewhere, something's not right.
Which leads to another question. There's a cache on Lightroom, like Photoshop, right? I mean, is it possible that when you do a whole bunch of steps, sometimes maybe it fills that up or causes problems?
Yeah, that can happen, and it jams up your RAM, but I emptied it.
Vince, I think I was muted. At the top of your brush settings, I think on the previous image, you were editing instead of creating a new one. And you had deleted your brush. There you go.
Thank you so much. I wish I had not had you unmute or had you muted. Okay.
Right now you have two brushes on your image, and I think you're editing the wrong one.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. Bob just solved it. I was I was already in a brush and it was messed up. So let's again. I'm sorry. We'll start over again. So we're going to make this image lighter up in here. I'm going to use a new brush. I'm in the brush module here, new brush, and I'm going to make it a little bit brighter. I'm going to increase the exposure by basically one stop. The show mask is on, so it should be showing. Shift right. Okay.
Now it's showing.
Yeah, I was screwing around with it today. I actually turned the color off. So you can see this isn't always simplistic. Okay, now we're in business. This is the opening stage jitters, I guess. So I'm going to paint this area up here, and it's showing red because I have show selected mask overlay turned on to show you where I'm painting. And I have a very wide feather on the circle. So if I just do this right here, you'll see that it's hot in the middle, hot red, and then it tapers off towards the edges. That's the feathering effect on the brush. So we're going to just work on the ceiling right now to show you where it went, but I'm going to turn that off so we can see it and bump up the exposure of the ceiling. Maybe bump it up a little bit further.
If you have auto mask turned on, where does it prevent it from, going outside of a boundary?
So the auto mask it reads where the plus sign is, and it says, okay, that's the boundary. And it will stop whatever's inside that circle which is over the plus sign. So if auto mask is on, it should, if this is my boundary, it should not affect the outside of that boundary. And it's not affecting the lighter gray along the side there as I'm going down.
Even if you have a larger, so it's depending on the size of that inner circle.
The inner circle,
Right.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Depends on the
there's no
contrast differences.
Dave, there's no true mask like in Photoshop. He hasn't made any selections or anything. So he's just brushing it on, and you can make the brush harder or softer with that feather.
I just wasn't sure exactly what the control part was of the auto mask.
Well, I think it's a difference in contrast, isn't it? It
Yeah,
looks
it picks up the tonal value of where the plus sign is.
Yeah.
That's what it's doing. So if the plus sign is over this dark area and I have auto mask down here on, it's going to try to keep and affect the tones of just what's inside that circle. That's where the plus sign is. That's how it's supposed to work. So if we locally adjust, try to make this brighter, give it a little bit of shadow detail. This is now getting a little bit too much, but this is the local adjustment. This is really bad. So I'm fully apologizing for what I'm doing. So the brush is trying to pick how I'm lightening this up. It'll feather to the outer circle. I'm going to try make a new brush, reset my controls over here, go back now and work on with the new brush, the back window area, and cut this light down some. So it's not quite as bright as it had been. To me, this was a little bit bright. And each time I turn this off and turn it on, I'm making a new brush. I'm going to be cutting this light down here a little bit. I think that's a little bit hot. Cutting some of the light down here and some of the light down here. So as I'm doing my local adjustments, I'll be turning on and off my brush, just brighten this a little bit to show it's there. Turn that off. I have the choice of lightening with what's called the radial filter. If I wanted to do this whole area, I can drag this filter out, and it has a gradient inside of it. You can see it's pretty hot in the middle with red, and then it tapers off. It has a feather effect, and here's on the right the feather control. I can get rid of the feather entirely for the gradient, or I can make the feather much more strong. And now I can set this over an area and allowing it to kind of smoothly disappear the effect as I increase this. And it gives me a gradual effect around this end of the image. Turn that off, and I'm going to do that on the ceiling. Turn the radial filter back on again and come up to the ceiling. Show you where how that's having an effect. It's a taper because of the feather, which is about 50. Make a few more adjustments to the ceiling. Increase the exposure a little bit, increase the shadows a little bit. I felt I wanted to make a little bit of texture to the stone. So if I paint on the stone, my settings are all, if I double click on effect, they're all 0. And now I can increase the texture and the clarity a little bit and add contrast or texture to the stone if you wanted to do that. My thought is here, I'm not exactly positive what Bob wanted to do. His vision, I presume it was to bring us down here. You may not want all this light effect here to get me to look here. So that's where the vision effect, the vision influence is. Bob's final image of that was this. This is a little still hot to me, and it's a little crooked here. That's what I tried to work on. I tried to lighten this up a little bit further from his image and darken this area up a little bit. And I apologize that had so much trouble to it. So let me go, before I do that, any particular comments on my mess up of that particular image?
I have a question about multiple brushes. or even just one brush for that matter, when you're on the brush tool, there's a little point where you place your brush at when you first start. Isn't there something about how you can make those little points show up or not show up? Like a setting or something. I remember when I was watching some Lightroom videos a year or more ago.
When you turn
So-
the brush, when you click to turn on the brush, you can see all the different brushes that are there. When click on it again, see the little circles, all those are the
Yeah,
brushes
right.
that
But
you
there's a way of
used.
making them go away.
Here,
And why
H.
would you want
go
that?
edit pins. I have
Well,
it on
because they
auto.
might be distracting.
Yeah, but you want to know where you already brushed, so you want to leave those on, I think.
Yeah, I agree. But here's the change here. Never,
Uh-huh.
always. I have mine on auto, so when I,
On auto, yeah, that's why I had it on auto, yeah.
when
When you
I,
hover over the image, then they appear. But
yeah,
if you take your brush over in the gray area or the tool area, then those dots go away. That's what I think I remembered the setting was. And the one that you're working on, like say for example, you did that roof at the top. If you have a dot up there in the dark area, when you click on that dot, yeah, if you have the mask on, then you'll see the area that's masked, what it's affecting.
yes. So when it's the active dot, it's a circle with this
Okay.
black and white circle. If it's a non-active dot, it's a solid gray.
Solid, okay.
If I hover over it, it will show you the area where
Overlay.
that dot
Mhm.
is affecting.
And then,
And this is the active dot. I can bring up a second active dot if I go to B.
Now,
oh,
Vince, you're doing a lot of local. Oops.
Yes.
You're doing a lot of local with the brushes. Do you do that a lot to your images?
Yes, I'll hopefully be able to show you on the next one. I do a little bit of global change, and then I spend a ton of time doing.
it's like dodging and burning. You have
Yes.
more control
I'm
over
trying to
everything.
bring you into the my vision. I want you down here, so I'll make shadows and increase shadows and highlight, brighten things up to get you to look where I want you to look. And maybe I don't want you to look here at all because that's going to take you away from what my vision was. So I'll come up here and paint this and darken that all the way down because I don't want you there. I don't want you here. And I'll darken this down a little bit further. So yes, you'll see that I do a lot of that when we go to the next images, hopefully.
Well, you could sort of darken the foreground and each arch as you go back, make them slightly brighter, brighter, brighter till you get to that like window part at the back, and that would draw you back there, right?
Yeah, but I would tend to do a path like that that's lighter
Mm-hmm.
because that's the light coming in.
It's going to pull you right there. Yeah.
Obviously here the light is coming from the side, so maybe that should be a little bit angled or something like that. But
Mhm.
your eye goes to the light area, so this is sending me out. It's a blocker that's going to go this way with my eye, so I want to tone this area down so I don't end up going out the window. I'm going to lighten this walkway this way to get me down here. So yeah, well, let me see if I can show you that on the next image before I hopefully don't mess it up. So this is my final. This is Bob's final. I think Bob's image has a lot of good stuff to it. The dirt kicking up is good. The tones of the image are good. It's a nice action shot. I would say the shot to me, if we look at the settings, it's 1/640th of a second, f10. The setting is fast. The shutter speed is fast enough that the wheel is stopped as opposed to showing motion. So if I was looking at the settings of the image, I would probably, if I was doing this again, want to go slower and maybe pan him a little bit to show that he's not just standing still. Obviously the dirt kicking up is showing that he's not standing still. But a little motion in the wheel would be good. To me, the crop is a little tight in the front because he doesn't have a whole lot of room to progress forward. You don't want to lose all this junk kicking up in the back. I think that part is good to have in the scene. And again, in reference to settings and F10, probably choose that to get as much in focus of the rider as you can, because it was an action shot and they're obviously hard to capture. So I think that part of the setting was okay. In the ISO, you need whatever you need to get your parameters at your f-stop and shutter speed. So the only thing I would change here is I would want to see motion. So I would lower this and pan. So let's see how it looked when it came in from.
Vince, can I jump in? The panning wasn't possible there because he was coming at me. I wasn't parallel to him.
Okay.
So that's why that one's not panned. I was below the hill, so he was kind of coming at
toward
me.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay.
Did you shoot one shot or was this a burst?
My camera doesn't burst very fast, so I probably did shoot about 3 as far as bursting. Yeah.
So this was the raw image or the image that came out of camera.
Yep.
And you know, it's a tough scene to catch, and I think you did a good job.
A lot of backlight there, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what threw the meter off, and that's where I ended up. So this is going to affect your meter. Obviously, what you want to get is your meter reading off of the rider. So let's see if we can work on that. I cropped the back off a little bit, tried to keep some room in the front. Let me see if I can show you the histogram change. No, this particular one, we didn't cut out the sky, so the histogram didn't change so much. The exposure, I bumped up. If you go over here, that's almost a stop to start with the exposure. And then I worked on the color temperature and made it a little, I'm not sure I changed the temperature at all. Let's see here. Temperature, no, I was experimenting with temperature. Temperature was shot and it ended up, no, I didn't really change your temperature at all. I did cut the highlights to try to get the clouds, a little detail in the clouds. The main problem I saw here was this is way too dark in this body, and that's where the shadows, to open up the shadows, comes from. The shadow slider over here to help out. And then I set my white and black points, trying again, white and black are your contrast controls. The histogram in the upper right, we have a little bit of room here on the right side for exposure for some to add some whites and a little bit on the black on the left side. If I increase the white and increase the black a little bit, it's affecting the contrast without causing total loss of detail. If you go too far to black, you lose everything in your shadow. You go too far to white, you lose everything in the white areas, the bright areas. A little bit more pump of the shadows, and then some dehaze, trying to sharpen the image with the micro contrast. And now the rest of these are going to be local adjustments. They were all global. They affected everything. Let me see if I can just demonstrate this to you. So if we go one at a time, we have to find the gray dot. If anyone sees the gray dot, let me know.
I think that's what I was kind of getting at on my previous question is about locating those dots. I thought I saw the video one time where there's something you can click on over in the brush attributes, like if you're using a brush to edit, and it exposes where that dot is. Maybe it's just turning on the overlay and it's in the center of the overlay. I'm not sure. I guess it wouldn't have to be the center.
Jenny, speak up if you, or Bob, why are my dots not showing up?
Rick
Does it
put in
help
the,
to
ch-
press
Rick
height?
put in the chat, you can change the view of edit pins by going to lower left and selecting show edit pins.
Yeah, that's the always in auto.
Yeah,
And
you say you're
But
not seeing your
it
pin.
could be somewhere in the bike and it's
Yeah,
hard
it
to
could be
see or
somewhere that
something.
it's very hard to see. I don't see it there. Well, yeah.
In
You
your
hit
history, is
over
there a
overlay.
place where you can?
it should be showing right.
Well, but that's only for the
On
one
the
you're on
right-hand
right
side in
now.
the dirt. It's in the
Oh,
right-hand side of the
thank you.
dirt.
Okay,
I
Yeah,
see
where
it.
the dirt's kicking up. Mhm.
okay. So let me come back then and see if we can find another one. So I know I've darkened this dirt. And unbelievable. Shit. So this goes with inexperience of doing this live. by making this active, I now erase everything else I did. Command
Yeah. Go back.
Work that time without going to another image. Command Z,
Yeah.
there you go. So I got everything back. So this was my first local. I did some more. Did a little bit more up behind the back wheel. And I'm progressing through the dirt. I erased some there because it was dark. I erased underneath the wheels here because it was dark. And this is the erase tool over here on the right.
And this adjustment is to darken down the
To darken the
dirt.
dirt down. So let's go back to where before I did that.
What is the purpose of having brush A and brush B?
You can activate.
If you
two
could just
different
make a new brush, if you can just make a new brush.
sometimes people want to play with and blend and use two at the same time. I've never done that.
I think if there's a certain size or style of brush
Yeah.
that you like to use,
it's
you
not
can
the
have it
effect
as a default on
Yeah.
A and B. And so in this image, I'm going to use that smaller A brush, and in the other image, the B brush, and I'm not going to change it.
Yeah, especially with the feathering, because the feathering, you can get closer to those sharp edges
Yeah.
if you have a lower feather.
So
You can have like a soft brush and a hard brush.
Yeah.
yeah.
Put
I
the
just
same
adjust them
attributes
each
on it.
time. But so you can have your defaults, as Jenny said. This one could have no feather. This one could have 100% feather.
Yep.
So it makes it faster, so you don't have to change. So as I did those changes, I felt that I could now lighten up the exposure a little bit, which is what that just did. A little bit more exposure. Now I think this is one thing I wanted to get to, which was the gradient tool. So this is a graduated gradient tool that you can drag down your image, and you can see with the overlay there that it's getting 100% of the gradient there. It's tapering through this part of it, and it's getting none below that part. So I'm gradation and bringing this down, and we'll see what happens. So now I've brought the top line, the whole thing, this circle down. This is it's 100% above this. Slid it down, so I'm getting 100% to here, 50% to there, and then nothing below that.
And what are you doing with the gradient tool? Are you going to darken that down, or?
So we have a -19 over here, so I've darkened it down. To darken the sky, so I'll turn that off.
When you're using a tool like a brush, what's the method like where you can turn it off and on and see what it looks like with it or without that adjustment? Does that just affect one brush, or if you have multiple brushes on there, does it turn them all off?
It's down here. This is the on off.
Right.
Turn
That
on.
turns all of them off if you have like 4 brushes where you did things.
It turns off your active. I have this activated. It turns off your active
Tool.
tool.
You can also have a before and after view as you're working. That's how.
Well,
I
that's the
work.
whole image, yeah.
Yeah.
I just meant from within a tool, like, I know they had that little flick switch that you would turn it on.
Is that switch. A little bit of brushing. Let's see if I can show you the next bit of brushing that was done. There's this dot here, so I lightened this up here, worked on that a little bit.
That's what I'm getting from your process is you do a lot more handwork than I do.
Yeah.
As far as using the brushes, yeah.
Yes. So even at the very end, my last brush was over here.
Mm-hmm.
I worked on that a little bit further. And with this active, you can see over here exposure -77. So I really cut the dirt down quite a bit. That was my last maneuver.
And was that the push the writer forward in the image more?
Yeah. There's nothing attractive about dirt, which
Right.
people have said when I've done tutorials. Dirt, gravel, asphalt, not much attractive to it. You don't want to be seeing this stuff. And drawing my attention to here, I darkened this out. Now that I'm beyond my last edit, I can make a new edit without losing stuff. So I want to show you something here. So this is the graduated neutral density. I think this is pretty cool. So I'm going to set my start point here, click my mouse and drag down. And I'm going to make the sky darker. So what happens when I do that?
You darken the helmet or the rider.
Exactly. But I want the sky darker. So
Tilt it.
So
You can change
Can
the
you use
shape.
the eraser and erase the helmet?
Okay, he's going to tell you. Just wait.
In the
I
graduated neutral
know.
density, this is the shape right there. We can go to the, within the graduated neutral density is its own brush. And I make that brush be an eraser brush. And I get rid of what I'm now it's
You're
bleeding.
masking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm getting rid of some of the masks. So let me just show you. We're getting rid of the mask that's overlying this guy. And I would have made it really small and gone down this.
Yeah, it's fine.
So this way you can use your graduated neutral density.
And mask out.
Mask out. I need to put some back in because I erased some of it that I didn't erase. So I can.
If
If you were
zoom
doing
in.
that on if you were doing that on a skyline with trees in it, and you wanted to bring the trees back, some say there was color in them or something.
Same
Would you get a
thing.
lot of halo? Well, is there another method of range mask or something
There
like that?
is. We can. I think. Hold on to that. I did not use range masking today because I was afraid that would really go over the top too much.
Yeah, it's much more complicated. Yeah.
Yeah, but yes, there is a way to do that to avoid the dark areas. This whole dark area here. If I drag that neutral density down, I'm going to be affecting the trees here. And if I want to erase the part from the trees, I'm going to erase the sky, the part that's to the sky. So that part of the sky will be
White patch.
where it was before. We don't want that. So yes, there's a way in Lightroom to do a range mask to protect the trees, but still do the sky. But I wanted to show you how you can do a brush within this actual graduated.
That's cool.
neutral density.
Yeah.
It's a pretty neat feature. So let me go to one of Ginny's. So you're worn out with me yet?
Yeah, Vince, I think we should give you a break. Not worn out from you, but you've done.
That sounds fine. Go ahead. I'll stop screen sharing. I apologize for the initial mess ups.
It's hard to do a live show thing like that.
Yeah. We're all sweating with you, Vince. Ivan, can you take over?
So I'm going to be showing you a couple of photos. Let me screen share. See if I can do this. Is that working?
Yes.
Got your desktop. Yeah.
See. Do you see any photos here?
Yes.
Yep.
One's coming up.
So I enjoy just playing around. I'm not very sophisticated when it comes to post-processing. I keep things very simple. And when I saw this photo, I wasn't quite sure exactly what to do with it. There's a lot of snow. It wasn't very sharp. It looked a little hazy. And I think the snow took up a large part of the photo. So I did try cropping it and I didn't get much.
No.
So I thought, how can I have some fun with this photo and still, do something totally different? I did try sharpening a bit and I got this and that didn't do it. So I went to Topaz Studio and I used a glow and I ended up with that.
Oh, that's cool.
Which was a fun way of that would be my interpretation, and just having fun with a photo, and I quite like the effect.
Sure.
So that's how I ended up with
It looks like fog from Stranger Things.
Yeah.
So what effect was that?
This is I think it's called glow, and then there was another inside. I think it's called cables, contrast cables, and
And what program is that in? Sorry.
It's part of the Topaz Studio program.
Right.
I use a couple of different. I use Lightroom very simplistically. Photoshop, I do very little burning and dodging. But I tend to use it mainly for minor adjustments. And the program that I use a lot is actually in the Photos program in Mac, and do some minor adjustments. I shoot largely JPEGs, and I try not to get too complex with post processing. So I certainly am not a perfectionist when it comes to this. I really don't have a great experience with some of the finer details. So, but this is how this photo turned out. I hope whoever took it likes the effect. But then I got this photo. There wasn't really a whole lot that I thought needed to be done. I thought it was lovely. I really liked the composition. I liked the lighting. I liked the colorful people, how this person is captured right between the two trees. It's sharp. I thought, I really thought that it was pretty good. So I wasn't quite sure where to go with this photo. I thought maybe brightening it a bit would give it a different look. And although I still like the original, this was just another way that I thought I would look at it, and it gave it a different hue. And I tried cropping some of the edges. I thought there was some. Let me get rid of this. In the corner, there were some branches coming up here, and I thought maybe cropping it just slightly. Let's see if I can get the next picture. Just looked a little cleaner in the corners, but overall, it still looked nice. And then the last, I tried looking at it in a black and white, and I still think I prefer the color, but I enjoy black and white immensely, and I thought it gave it a different look.
Oh, I like the black and white, Ivan.
Yeah, with that tree, the birch trees.
I like it because the one green jacket was bothering me.
Oh, okay.
So I think the black and white took care of that.
You could lighten.
What do you think of this image versus this image? Do you think this is too bright?
Yeah.
I
I
think the
wasn't quite
sky
sure.
looks unrealistic in the second one, although I like the warming colors as if it looks as if the sun is hitting things, but I feel like the sky doesn't look real on that one.
Okay. Then,
I like the
I have-
crop. I like the crop and I like the black and white.
well, thank you. Very quickly, I do have two more, but they don't really take very long.
Go on.
So this was one that again, I thought it was great. I loved the leading lines. I thought maybe this was a little bright.
Hmm.
But it was nice. And I thought this was, I thought looking at the figure, it's slightly tilted to the right, but the back wall here is nice and level. And I tried playing around with straightening this image, the statue, but then this became all skew and I didn't like that. I loved these lines going. The background I didn't think was all that interesting, so I thought possibly I could crop to bring out the statue more.
You get light in the statue.
So I did make some minor adjustments, and let me just see here if I can see the histogram. So this was the original histogram, and
All that snow pushes it way to the right. Yeah.
yeah, right. So then I brought it a little over and I darkened it slightly, and that came over a little bit, and I cropped it more to bring. I thought the background possibly could be cropped out and bringing the statue as the main focus, still giving you these lines. And I think that was the last one. So I would
Every
like,
one of these has good impact, but having seen the overall image with the shadow, silhouette of the tree on the left, when you zoom in so far on it, I feel like there's so many things being robbed or taken away from it.
I would
That's
just
only
lighten
because
it.
we've seen the versions of it, but just as an image by itself, it had good impact.
so
You could
Zoom in more on
crop the
statue.
sides in just a little bit.
there I did.
No, it's too much though, I think.
Do you?
Just the sides,
What
but
about-
I would, the statue top maybe lighten. That would be the only,
Right. Do you think this is cropped too tightly?
yeah.
Now that I've seen the other parts of it, yeah.
Yeah, I like the first one.
Okay. Yeah, and that's why it was very difficult because I think these photos are great the way they are, and I had very little to contribute to improving them, and I don't think I did. I think that's just a different way of looking at it. But I really like that. This photo, when I first looked at it, I thought that this was not quite even. I thought this was sloping up a bit. This was sloping up a bit, and it was kind of dark. This wall was dark, and so I lightened it up a bit. Let's just see if I go back here to the histogram. That was the original picture, and then I lightened it up, and I thought that this gave a more overall smoother look. I did straighten it slightly. I did it in black and white.
That's nice.
And I thought that also gave a nice impression. And with photos, you actually have quite a lot of things that you can do. It's a simple program on the iMac, and I use that a lot. And I just to keep things very simple, but it gives me the effect that I like.
Oops, sorry, Ivan. Now, to me, the perspective is just a little disconcerting. I would almost like to see the verticals straightened, fixed a little. I'm a little bit anal on that, and I don't know how it would. I don't know how much room there is in the bottom of the photo to see if it can.
I mean,
more upright.
Pull the top towards you.
Keep the top level, but the side verticals.
I think I would have to.
And you have to pull the top towards you. It's a perspective thing. But
This-
those bridges go up. That's the problem, probably.
Yeah. I'm sure that, there are definitely better programs for getting the perspective right. But
And there's also, if I don't know, what was the what size focal length was this lens? You have the information on the lens?
I'm not sure.
Because with wide angle lenses, it makes a big difference how
Go
where
to
your
the
center
slide.
line, where
It's
your center line
pushing
is
it
at. If you're
out.
pointing up or pointing down, you really get a lot of distortion. So in a situation like this,
Get
you may
in-
want to put like a 2 or 5 second timer on, hold your camera up in the air and take the
no, no lens information on this picture.
Okay.
Did I-
But being inside a covered bridge like that, I'm sure it's
Back to the original
probably a
photo.
pretty wide angle lens.
Let's see if I can find. Oh, here we go.
14 or something.
18
Yeah,
millimeter.
18.
18 millimeters, f6.
Uh-huh.
It's a Rebel.
Yeah, when it gets down below 24, it's like things really get, if you
Yeah.
tilt your
Wide.
camera up just a little bit, you get a lot of bending and distortion and stuff.
So I went from this to that, and in a nutshell, that's pretty much what I did.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ivan.
Thanks, Ivan. We
Okay.
appreciate it. We know how busy you are.
Sure. No, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Larry, what have you got for us?
I don't have a lot. I'm a real amateur, following two experts like I did, and I wasn't aware, and I don't have the technical abilities, especially to do it live, to do changes and all that. So mostly what I thought we were going to do about just critiquing the picture. So that's what I did on mine. So let me start the screen if I can get. Okay. Okay, I did share a screen. What did I do wrong, Jenny?
That's your screen probably. You don't have, you have to find what you
Oh.
want to
You
share.
shared your whole screen.
Yeah,
So
you
if
have to
just
find
click
your
the
screen.
Oh,
minimize-
okay, all right, okay. I see now where I'm.
Just click the minimize button on the Zoom
Yeah, where
thing.
I'm.
Yeah, up at the,
Find what you're looking for.
click that little, there we go.
Okay, there we go.
There you go.
All right, let me get. Okay, here we go. So,
Oh,
all
that's
right,
nice. I like
this
that.
was one, and I didn't, I'm not aware of really if the information is somewhere who did the image or what. I'm not aware of with it, but just my very amateur opinion. I like this this image. This I guess part of a tree or what, a broken one here, I think is a little bit on the bright side. It would help if it was toned down a little bit more. But otherwise, from that there, I personally just think it's a nice image. If I can get to my. Okay, this one was entitled Dogwood. My feeling on here of a lot of hot spots on here really sort of ruin, or I shouldn't say exactly ruin the picture, but and this white blown out area up in the top left here is, I think, is the distracting, annoying section of it there. This one here, I think is a nice picture just down in this area here. All the other, I guess, is frost up in here. I know it's out of focus, but I don't think it helps the image at all. And this background too, I think, is quite too brilliant and annoying on it there. But otherwise, I think the maker had a very good idea and sort of almost photographed too much of the frost or ice on there.
Yeah, Uber edit.
Let's see, I made some notes here. What the? Oh, yeah, okay. This is the Magnolia one. I liked very much this image. I think it's nice and sharp. The way the maker put the, I think the important part of the image over here into the corner was very, very nice.
I'm the only one.
This here of called Maple Leaf, I think is a very, very attractive attractive image. Has a very good blurred background to it, and maybe again the main part of this leaf here a little bit could be toned down a little bit to improve it. So I'm sorry, I'm not the technical guy like Ivan is and like Vince is or what they're. And
Larry,
but yes,
what do you mean by toning it down?
just really the brightness of what I think of it. I think it's just you know, these white areas here sort of would stand out a little bit more.
Okay.
But I, you know, I really like I like to do close-ups of leaves and plants and have it myself, and I think it's a very nice image. So okay, Leigh, go ahead.
Do you want to just go back to the start of these? I think other people might have some input. If anyone wants to pipe up, I'll start. Well, I'll start with this one. I'd like just to have that bright area on the right side cropped.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe just a bit more sharpening on the center part, pistils, whatever they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a really pretty image, but I agree that your eye goes to the light part usually in an image. So your eye is being taken out of the image instead of being drawn in. So if you did crop it a little, or if you had Lightroom and you could use that radial filter to just brighten up that middle part, I think it would just really make it pop.
Yep.
Where do I go to get off of my screen now? To stop
You
sharing.
you can.
We need
Turn
your-
share
we need your
screen back off.
We'd like you to share
You
a
just
bit longer.
open that folder again, Larry. We wanted to look at a couple of those pictures again.
Oh, okay.
I think Leigh wanted us to look at them together.
Okay, all right.
I think Leigh had some comments. Which other one did you want to talk about, Leigh?
I thought the first one,
The tree.
Patagonia?
the stump in the water, just maybe crop it, maybe take a bit off the right side to balance the left side, which is quite close to the edge, unless you've got more on the left side. That was my only comment. I realize you're not cropping it because you've still got some of the stump going off to the right, but I don't know, it just felt unbalanced to me.
I felt like this one could have used a bit more contrast because everything is almost sort of the same.
Yep.
And I think Lightroom could allow you to do some of that with your whites and blacks and just make it pop a little bit more. And you could get some texture in that piece of the stump that's sticking up too.
Yep. Next one. Next photo. Go on, Jenny.
I would agree with what you said, Larry, about the hot spots in that one. There are a lot of really, I mean, if you could see a histogram, I know you'd see a lot of stuff going up off to the right side on the hot spots there.
But you could probably brush that down a bit, couldn't you? Burn it down.
You could.
Because it's a nice image. It's just technically.
I like the texture in the bottom underneath the flower of the sort of fuzzy things that are coming up. I think those are really pretty, and I like that they have something dark behind them.
Jenny, this is what happens all the time. You're so focused on a subject, you don't look past it into the background. So just moving off to the left
Right, then you get
could
more of the
remove that.
dark stuff. Mhm.
Yeah, and placing the flower in front of the darker part of your background. Mhm.
Right.
Does anybody use backdrops when they shoot macros of flowers, you know, like a piece of cloth or a piece of cardboard, colored cardboard or something, a neutral or a black
Not in
I
or
try-
nature.
something?
I
Not
try
in
to
nature.
move so there's something behind it.
Mhm.
If you can, yeah. But a
If
lot
I
of times there's
can.
really bright light. A lot of times there's really bright light behind it, like in the upper
Yeah.
left.
I think
Yeah,
one way to look at that is when you're doing close-ups like this, is to look at your background first and find a background that you like, that you're going to blur, and then find your subject to go into that background by your positioning.
oh, I try to do that. It's tough.
And using your body to control the shadow of the sun,
Yeah,
to get rid of some of these hot spots is another helpful technique. And I agree with Bob. You zoom in on your subject and you forget what's around it. You don't go 360 around your image.
well, I'm short too. No, you know, I'm limited to how high and how much I can turn.
I
But
was
yeah,
gonna
this
say-
was shot into the white sky. Yeah, I know
I was going to say get higher.
that. I can only get lower, but yeah, it's tough.
Platform shoes, yeah.
Yeah, no, I probably blew this out by doing adjustments, but I was playing because I was learning how to edit. So,
Yep.
you know, that might be why it shows so white because,
And I like the composition of it coming out of the lower left corner. It's just comes in nicely.
thank you. Thank
It's
you.
good composition.
Can we? Yeah,
And we,
I agree
good.
with that one, that you're right to crop it. I just like the colors in the back. That's personal, but.
Yeah, crop half the picture away, crop the right half away. Put your
Right,
hand up
and
there.
I
It's a
like the
nice
background.
colors, nice
Yeah.
composition.
Yeah, I like it. Make it square.
yeah,
Mhm.
That would
maybe
be nice.
decrease the brightness of the colors in the back just a little. Just,
Yeah, I can make them duller, but I like
Yeah.
that the background colors are in the leaf itself. So that's why, I just think it's a pretty.
yep. All right,
This
well,
is
thanks,
an-
Larry. We'll move back to Vince and see what he's got to say about some more.
Okay, so hopefully this will be more smooth than the last mess. I again apologize. So you should see a bird image.
Yep.
It's not just a bird, Vince. Do you know what kind of bird it is?
I have no idea.
All
Heron.
right, well then, I don't know
Heron.
if you have a right to, it's a green heron.
Bird.
The green
It's
heron,
just a
It's
yeah.
a
bird.
green heron.
It's just a bad.
Yeah.
Call that because it's brown or?
No, it is,
Yeah.
it is kind of greenish, actually.
It's very green, yeah.
Is
So
it really?
this was I don't know how this ended up with Ginny, but this was the image that came into me unprocessed straight out of camera. And we'll try to go through some of what I did to get to my final image, which was here. And I don't know if that's what she was looking for. I did crop it some. And then apparently didn't like what I was cutting off. I wanted to keep the space in here. I did cut down the highlights for the background.
Mhm.
Try to get a little definition with dehaze. The dehaze was only at 14. Again, I try not to go above 20. And a little bit of more contrast here with clarity. Cut the exposure down some, and then used further fine tuning, adjusting my exposure, trying to get this background down to get to not be so bright. The
Okay,
graduated neutral density, yeah.
I have a comment on this one. I really like this image. To me, this is a vertical picture. The bird is I mean a horizontal.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Right where you have that gradient right now, I'll crop it just at the bottom of that top branch. To me, that that detracts from the picture. I really like this
You don't need the background.
as a horizontal.
Well, wait till you see my edit, Bill.
Okay.
Okay, Vince, go.
I worked on the shadows a little bit, worked on the grad filter again. Let's see what I redid this and lowered that background down some more. And then started with some brush strokes. So let's see which are local changes. And for the life of me, I don't know why that's not showing.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It's okay, just,
Made some highlight changes. A little bit more of the local adjustments there. The using the HSL slider,
Mhm.
I think is usually pretty helpful. So if you come down to here and you want to adjust the brightness of a particular color, you can use the color picker, which is this. And what I did here was I selected the color green that I wanted to adjust and slid it down. I'll show you when I'm all done with how I did that without messing up this image. To decrease the brightness, the luminance of the green, that was another selective way to do that. Gave a little bit of vignette to it. Worked on the on some local brush adjustments again. We can see here Bob in reference to fine tuning, working on the legs, working on the stick up here. I didn't eliminate the stick because I didn't know, again, what Ginny, what her plan was. To show you the luminance now, like I'm at the top, this is where I finished. If we want to change a specific color, like right there, I can, and I want to make it lighter or darker, this is the color picker. I can bring that over, put the crosshairs on the color I want to change, click, and then go up or down. So now I can make that color change, and you can see what happened over here, all the things related to that color. If I want to change this and make this a little brighter, I'll put the picker there. I want to saturate a color, this brown here. I now have the HSL on saturation. I'm going to pick this color right there, the crosshairs, and I'm going to go up. So anything that has that color combination in this entire image will be affected. We're going to do the green and increase the green. So you can see the sliders on the right changing. I'm just affecting things that are in that color that I picked. So that's one way to do it. My guess on what Jenny did, I'm going to get rid of all of that luminance change and go back to where I was. This is my guess, Jenny, on what you did to my final image. And you zoomed in on his head.
No, I did not zoom in on his
You
head.
didn't do that?
No.
Okay. So
Oh,
one
yeah.
of my steps was I did
It looks like a
lighten the
Ginny
eye.
original, the eyeball shot.
Yeah, I did lighten the eye as well.
No, 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 no. I did not.
Okay, so what did you do? Can you, I'll stop screen sharing, Jenny.
All right. Well, I did crop it as, hold on, let me screen share here for a sec. I guess I'll go to my, oh shucks, can I just go to my desktop? I'll just go to this. Okay, so here's what I ended up with. Can you guys see that? Yes, you
Yes.
can, right? So I cropped it in a much longer, I started with a 16:9, but that ratio didn't quite give me enough room in front of him. So I actually just did a manual one, and I might even have pulled this down a little bit more here. Maybe
Jenny, how do you know it's a him?
It. Give it, let's see, I'm just gonna crop that a little. So maybe a little more like that, because it does need to be more of a horizontal, and he's aiming here. And now there really wasn't quite enough room. I would have liked to have had a little more. I like open space in front of my, in my image. I do like negative space. Now I did some of the same things you did, Vince, in terms of individual local selection, local changes. I tend to use a radial filter a lot, so I might have used that. I did some color grading rather than just the HSL, so with the highlights and the shadows. But otherwise, I think we kind of came up with something pretty similar.
Yeah, they're very close.
Yeah.
I was afraid to crop out your top.
Well, that was only because that's what I got with the shape that the camera takes. But you know, that stick up there was definitely not necessary and should have been eliminated. That should have been the first thing you did.
So
Just
if this was a
get rid of
nature
it.
competition, you couldn't eliminate this stick, but if it's your
I can crop it
creative
though.
work,
You can crop the stick, you just
you
can't.
can crop it, but right now this is bothering me, so I would like to see this gone.
Oh, this part here.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, I don't like that either. So if this were, I wouldn't even enter this in a nature competition because I couldn't get rid of this. I'd try to find, I mean, I had way too many pictures of this green heron. I just sent you one that I thought would be a challenge for you.
the challenge was doing this live. That was the challenge.
Yeah,
Can you unscreen share? And
I just did on screen share.
Okay.
I
Can you
think.
see my screen?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
No.
Yeah. Back to Ginny.
Oh, okay.
You still see mine?
No.
No.
Oh,
I am, here I come. Well, that was a little smoother from my end for the last one. This is another one of Ginny's. This is how it came in out of camera. This is what I ended up with. And we'll just quickly go through a few things here. I went through a couple crops and ended up with this. This is a custom crop. Didn't quite fit. I did not want to eliminate very much. I thought the sky up here did not add anything. And
okay.
I wanted to get rid of some of the blackness along the darkness along the bottom, but I did not want to crop it in. To me, this scene here was not just the moon, but the field, these bushes. So that was all part of the scene for me. The graduated neutral density, the graduated filter, let me just quickly see if I can show you that. And I was-
Use a Luminance Mask, it looks like.
Yeah, I adjusted the exposures with that. Worked on the highlights, the shadows, and affected the whiteness without, you can see I had room over here on the histogram, but as I increased the white, the tonality to me changed too much. So I left it with more space where I could have gone with it. I worked on a little bit of dehaze to bring out some of the details down here and some of the clarity. Went back to a neutral density, graduated neutral density filter, worked on the sky and worked on the bottom, top and bottom. Did some adjustments in clarity of this to bring these trees out and these trees.
Hey, Vince,
Yes.
just see what it looks like if you straighten the horizon. I mean, I really like this image. I just like to see if you've got the horizon straight, what it looks like.
Okay, I'll go to my final, and I elected not to do that, Bill, but I can show you that now because horizons aren't always straight.
No, I agree.
It wasn't.
So the charm to me was the diagonal. So now you can see if I look at the horizon, I kind of will eyeball how straight I have it there. The cheap and easy way to do it. There are other more sophisticated ways. And to me, that's less dynamic.
Yeah, I don't like that one as much as the other.
So that's why I went that route. going back to where I was, we'll do a radial filter, which is what Ginny said.
The moon.
And here's the dot. Oh, here, this is one thing I want to show. The moon, let's look at the moon where it came in. To me, it was a little washed out. And I went up to a radial filter of the moon. And the image got moved with the crop. This should be just over the moon. And there's no feather here. The feather, something got changed on me. The moon was supposed to have no feather. I may have changed that somewhere else to adjust it, and I just screwed me up again. Hold on one second. Update radio. Here's where it was. I made it. I got it straight and no feather on it to adjust the exposure and clarity of the moon. And those changes were made to try to increase the stuff going on in the moon itself to bring out more detail with the radial filter and no feather on it. I worked on the sky using the HSL panel here. That's why the sky just changed. Here's before. A little bit washed out to me, and I adjusted it to this, and that's how I ended it. I did not take this out. Not exactly sure what it is. I suspect it's a tower, radio tower.
Yep.
But that was part of Ginny's image, so I left that in. I did darken this building back here, or whatever that is. So part of what I tried to do was adjust the moon, adjust the sky, bring out some points in here of the trees. What do you have, Ginny?
Okay, I did something very similar. So here's my Lightroom. And your question about straightening the horizon, if you look at this radio tower, you'll see it's straight. And so that's why I didn't want to adjust the horizon, because then this would be really cockeyed. I think I came up with a very similar edit to yours, Vince. And if you look at what I did over here, I took a shortcut because I didn't have time to do all this, and I had a very similar image. So I pasted the settings from that image in first, and then I played with this image. So this was the other image that I think I pasted the settings from, or it could have been this one. Nope, it wasn't that one.
Comparing on my screen, my sky is a little bluer, a little more saturated.
Yes, I think you're right. And I may have tried that, but I just, it was actually morning. And so the light the sun was coming up behind me. So it was lighting all these trees and this hillside, and then the moon was setting. So, and the clouds are pretty cool. So that's where that all came from.
Yeah.
Jenny, can I make a comment about straightening the horizon of the tree?
Okay.
Besides the part about the tower, which is important, when he did tip it earlier and showed it to us, the cloud bank in the back then was way higher on the left, and it just looked,
And if you look down
unusual
here,
or
there's some
strange.
evergreens that are straight up and
Right.
down, that are vertical. So
Yeah, the tree trunks are straight now.
yeah, and so this was the land was going upward here.
Right.
And this actually sort of counteracts it. So I kind of like the two things. I mean, I don't really think this is an image I'd probably do anything with. I just wanted to see what Vince did with it. It was just a beautiful morning with the moon set.
Okay. I'll try to get through another one quickly for you. We'll go to Bill's images.
Lonnie.
So Bill and I have totally different styles. This makes it really hard. This was Bill's image. There are a couple of points I would state with this image. Some of the trees are kind of blockers to me. I'm not sure exactly what the subject I assume was the waterfall and the bridge. The trees are a little interfering with me. I know the right and left tree are trying to frame it. The processing to me is a little heavy, a little HDR grungy looking to me, and just is not what I look for or what I
Vince?
do. Yeah.
That was intentional on this shot.
Yeah.
I probably have about 30 shots from the spillway there, many of them on the other side of the trees. And really, this is just a grab shot when I came up on top of the hill.
How about the processing, Bill?
Yeah, definitely intentional HDR-ish and a muted tone.
So that's something I wouldn't know as I'm adjusting his and giving my vision to Bill's image. The processing on, I don't know if you can appreciate it, but on my screen it's all ghosted. The trees have white ghosts on them. There's a white ghost on the bridge, and that means it's been overdone, overbaked. There's multiple things that can do that. So let's look at what I had. So the image as taken was this. That's out of camera. And what I ended up with was this. Trying to cut down on the trees, leaving some of the trees, then not processing it to the level that Bill would have desired. And you can see the local adjustments on the left. They're all brush strokes, subtle changes. My crop, I think I did this as a 16 by 9. Yes, as a 16 by 9. So I really heavily cropped this image to leave the trees there, but to adjust them a little bit. I did my contrast with my black and white adjustments. So that's how I do contrast. I don't use the contrast control. A little bit of exposure change, a tiny bit, 3 points of vibrance for to try to give it a little saturation to the places that didn't have a lot of saturation. I wanted to show you the graduated neutral density if I can get that. Yeah, here we go. So darken the sky a little bit. It's covering the trees. And I brought out the brush, eventually used a Luminance range mask to try to adjust, to try to stop some of the areas that were dark from being adjusted, and then started brush stroking out the parts of the trees that needed to be brushed out, to not have them all affected by the gradient filter on top. So you can see I'm erasing here my effect on the sky from the trees. We'll take that off now. Some further adjustments.
I like that.
Here, these are all brush dodge and burning of the grass. You just see the changes that happened there. Basically, each change right here, each change should be very subtle and almost not perceivable. If you perceive it, then you've perhaps done a little bit too much. So I'm adjusting selectively certain small areas. A latecomer with I use some dehaze in here to give it just a little bit more crispness, and I used a little bit of clarity in the grass just to sharpen it up a little bit. And this was the final image, looking, I think, quite different than this. That's Bill's vision of that image, and that was mine.
Very good.
Okay. Leigh, if you want me to do one more, I can do that.
Sure.
Yeah, I've got 15 minutes, so yep.
Well, I don't know if you want to do that one or Epler School, any of them. The ones you just showed the little pond. That was actually an infrared shot.
Yeah, I can't do any edits on that one. This one's not infrared. This was Bill's vision for his shot. Again, it's an HDR type of effect. And this is mine. So they are completely different visions, Bill's and mine. You can, my history on the left, a huge number of local adjustments. Here's where it came in out of, this is out of camera. It's overexposed. We can look at the histogram. It's well clipped over here on the right side. And the areas that are in red have no data, and that data is not retrievable once it's washed out. So that's an in-camera thing. If we look at the settings here, it was 2/50th of a second. I'm not exactly sure about that. 5.6, I would have thought I would have flipped those, maybe make this f11 and a 60th of a second to help with my, this is not so sharp back here, to help with that. So I did crop this a little bit, I think. Not much. I got rid of some of the dead sky. I did not, I think a couple points I wanted to make with the cropping. I did not crop this in. I wanted the water here, and you'll see hopefully at the end what I did to bring you into the picture with this. I did not want to crop off this building. I could have, and it's all or none. It either stays or you have to really come all the way in, which would have lost my pathway. I did not want to do that. So I got rid of some of the top stuff. I adjusted some highlights. So that's exposure, highlight adjustments. It's a little dark now. We'll have to work on that. I did some contrast with my white and black set points. Came down a little bit here, but I still, the things that were clipped, they're pretty much gone. A few more exposure adjustments. And I then started with a lot of brush strokes. I was working on the bridge, increasing some, changing the exposure, increasing the texture of the wood in the bridge. And I'm hoping to be able to show you something on that water. Oh, here we go. So local adjustments here. Another local adjustment. Doing it piecemeal, trying to make sure I know, not lightening everything the same. Let me take the overlay off. Trying to, this is a little brighter. The light seemed to me to be coming from the right side here. I'm trying to make this a little lighter than that. Working with shadows, increasing what I did. This is dark down here. We made some adjustments inside that wheel well. In here we go. To lighten that up some. So I was working now down in there, brighten that up a little bit, but again, I'm not brightening everything up because it's not all going to be the same. I had to leave some of this dark to show the effect. We're now back in the house over here, making some changes on that structure. I'm over on doing some work on here, darkening the stones a little bit. I darkened and added texture to the rails. So it's trying to work with dodge and burn. Oh, here we go. Let's, if I can find my dot in the water. Here. So I brightened the water and increased the highlights. One of the things that happens when you lower your highlights is you flatten your water. So almost all the time, if I've lowered the highlights for the sky, I will selectively, locally do work on the water and bring the highlights back and maybe add a little bit of white to that. So what I was trying to gain here was to have your eye spot that water. There were two circles going on to me. Because of the fence, which I love the composition, Bill, the fence is bringing me into the scene, and I can follow the fence and then walk around to the building. Or I can do it by way of the water. So I can come this way and see the building. I've lightened the water, trying to have another pathway to this water wheel. So that's what that brush stroke was about, that local adjustment through the water, this guy here. That was some work done on the pebbles. This, I'm now working on the bridge here, and I texturized, did a little more contrast work and exposure work on the bridge. I missed it here. I'll show you something when I'm done this after I went off and had to erase and redo it. And do it piecemeal. And then slop over it here. There's a much easier way to do that, and I'll show you that with the bottom one. Let's see if we can do that. Making a straight line by holding the shift key and your mouse, and you make a straight line to make your brush line nice and straight. So a lot of individual work on that bridge, and then some final exposure adjustments to get me.
I like the way you darken the railings.
Yeah, so
that's a lot of work.
Yeah, probably half an hour. So the image has to be worth that to spend that kind of time. But sometimes it's a couple hours. But so I'm gonna make one adjustment and see if I can show this to you. Say I want to draw. I apologize if this is not important to you, but if I want to draw a straight line on this, I'm going to do my brush here. Here's the brush. I have it at this particular size for this demonstration, no feather. And I'll hold it here, hit my shift. Sorry, hold it here, shift, and then here, and it should give me a straight line. And that's the straight line it drew. So let me do this bottom one. And it does a straight line. So you click, shift, click, click, shift, click, and it'll do a straight line. But you just have to have your circle such that you're following the edge. And now it's not this fine-tuned painting, then you go, oh, I went over. But that just showed me something that somebody asked earlier. I think it was Dave, asked about the mask. So if the mask should be reading what's in the center of the circle, that particular tone, and it should not, if the mask is working right, I have on auto mask, it should not affect the snow. You can see I am over the railing, but the plus is on the wood. So Lightroom is reading the wood and saying, that's the pixel he wants to affect. So even though my circle is on the snow, it's not affecting the circle. If I did not have the mask on, you see what just happened? That's about the same as I was holding it before. And if I don't get rid of that and I make an exposure adjustment, you're going to see the exposure adjustment
Yeah.
on the snow.
Yep.
And Barbara asked the question about the gradient, about change. Someone said, can you change the shape of the gradient? You cannot. That's the gradient are those lines. But yes, Barbara, you're correct. You can do an angled gradient by just coming down like,
An angle.
turn it on first, come down like that, and then you can tilt how you want. So I'm just going to do along the fencing here and above and change the exposure. 100%, 50%, no percent under the line. You can hold on my Mac, if I hold the command key,
The option key, I think, Vince.
thank you, Lee. Hold the option key to fix this guy. You can constrain your lines in further to change, to decrease the variant that you've made, the gradient. You don't necessarily want to do that very often because that's a big jump. That's why they're spread out. This is the one, the command key. The option key on the Mac will lock in the center point. The command key you can drag without changing that top line or the bottom line. I'm holding my command key on my Mac. So yes, you can do an angle. And I think one of the big points is don't forget that brush to now go and either add to it. I want to add down here to whatever I've told the mask to do, or I want to erase what's in there and say, no, don't do anything. Leave this the way it was. No mask there. So I've added mask outside the graduated neutral density. I've erased mask over there. So that's that one.
Oh, thank you, Vince.
Yeah.
It's 11:30 where I am, but I hope it's not that late there. Thank you to everybody involved. For the mentors, I know that it took a lot of time and a certain amount of diplomacy to make your comments, and I'm sure the participants appreciate it. I'm sure everybody learned something, and especially that everybody's eyes are different and they see different things and they appreciate different things. And as Vince said at the start, there is no right way. This is just happens to be my way. So thank you.
Thank you.